Brandon, thanks so much for kicking things off. That's not always the easiest thing to do, so I certainly appreciate that. Okay, smell the roses. Let's go ahead and take a look. And I just want to kind of reiterate something that I had mentioned during week one. Is in my during my critiques, my comments are not at all meant to be discouraging. You'll find out pretty quickly. I'm pretty honest when it comes to critique, and I think that's the only way to be as far as critique goes. There's no way that you're going to get better as a designer, both in your technical execution as well as your conceptual development, unless people look at your work and they tell you exactly what they see. Then you're able to look at that and see what others might possibly see in your work. The only reason I say that is because I've got a lot of comments on your work, and I don't want you to construe my um, comments as being discouraging. They're not. They're meant to be nurturing. Okay, let's go take a look. Okay, so stop and smell the roses. Now, my first thing that I looked at, and my reaction to this when I opened the file is this. This looks like a tombstone. It does. I mean, this looks like a gravestone. It does, and the shape of it, and even the fact that the rose is on it. I mean, it definitely could be mistaken as such. And we as designers don't want to send any incorrect connotative messages in our design work. Okay, so we don't want people to mistake our work, specifically the message in our work, for something else. Now, as you stated, and that's why we spent last week talking about what our intent is behind the poster, so that we can make sure that execution meets intent. Okay, in this particular case, I don't think it does, and the reason I say that is because if I remember correctly, your conceptual development for this particular piece was more of a celebrate life thing. So the connotation of the shape in the background that's shaped very much like a tombstone, I think is sending a different kind of a message in that regard. Plus, you've got 18 by 24 here, and you kind of reduced it down to a live area of almost about half of that. So my recommendation is to use the whole playing field, so to speak. Use the whole picture plane for your design. I don't see really any benefit of isolating this area for the design and keeping the rest of the area black in the background. The next thing I want to talk about is typography. Then we'll talk about the illustration itself. So the typography, there's a couple of things I want you to consider. First, if you take, let me just do something here real quick. Um, oh, okay. I just want to use this as a straight edge. So watch the top, okay, and I'm going to bring that down to the baseline of the right side of that curve type, and we can see it's not level. So that has got to be level, first of all. Otherwise, that type on the path just doesn't work. Also, I consider all caps here. Now, when we use all caps, there's a couple of things that happen. A lot of people feel, a lot of designers feel that when we use all caps, the viewer feels like they're getting yelled at. And I agree with that to a very high degree. All caps and bold is for emphasis. In this particular case, do we need to emphasize stop and smell the roses, since it's the only type on the page? And if you don't feel it's worth emphasizing, then would it be maybe more expeditious to use title case, where only the first letter of each word is capitalized, and wouldn't be capitalized, the wouldn't be capitalized. Do you see what I'm saying? So think about title case on that. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is the actual illustration itself. So to do that, I want to zoom in. There's a couple of areas that are problematic right here. See, the color is exceeding. It's already encroached on that contour line, and it's overflowing. So the color isn't within that contour line. We see it here. We see it here. And I believe that those are the only areas. The stem itself comes down to a very elegant point, but that's a little bit antithetical, because we know that roses get trimmed at the stem, and we know that that trim is usually straight. So I think that is also a little bit problematic. The actual leaves of the rose itself, are those the right color? I mean, they're brown, which kind of indicates that they're withering, which kind of indicates that this rose might be on its way out. I would say go ahead and use a different, maybe either the same green or a different value of green for the leaves so that we don't get this kind of feeling like they're dying. Also, you've got these kind of unusual shapes here in the coloring of the leaves where part of them are white. You definitely want to address that. Over here in the flower areas, I think we could probably, well, we could definitely indicate more depth and dimension, specifically in these areas right here where there would be more folds indicating more petals of the leaves. Right now, and the front side would be just the two petals, right? The one on the right and one on the left, depending on how they overlap. But over here, there would be more texture in the inside of that rose. So come on, I want to represent that as well. The next thing I want to talk about is color. Do you plan on leaving the hand uncolored? And if so, do you feel that color would add to the visual engagement of the piece? I'm not real sure. This is kind of a really unusual configuration here, that the hand just gets kind of severed. So you want to definitely work that out. It's a little bit uncomfortable that hand just gets severed. So these are things that you'll have to really consider in your final solution. Okay, 6 minutes. I didn't mean to spend that much time, but I do want to be as thorough as possible. So let's go ahead and address those issues for the final piece. And if you have any questions or you need any clarification on my comments, please let me know. And I'll be glad to provide anything in that regard. All right, great start. Thanks. And again, thanks so much for kicking things off. Thank you.